This is Josh Mandel with a quick demo of how to share smart health cards and smart health links ahead of an appointment or using an online booking process and going beyond just the ability to present a QR in person. And it's worth saying that we have these standards for smart health cards and health links, and they've been widely used for presenting health information by displaying a QR code, which is great and powerful, but it doesn't solve all of the check-in workflows that we have where individuals might need to share data online in a virtual environment or ahead of time. And so I want to share a few examples of the user experience challenges that people face when they're trying to solve these issues. And some of them are learnings from the COVID-19 pandemic, where these technologies were used for representing vaccine or lab results in COVID. So one scenario is you've got a QR code on your phone, but you're trying to share it with a website. And so this leads to all kinds of contortions where people try to point their phone into a mirror and take a picture using the camera. And suffice it to say, not only is this not a good user experience, it really doesn't work at all. So we also see examples where websites might offer the ability to upload a file with the information. And that could be a file with just a picture of the QR code, but it could be also a JSON representation of the health card information. And this has a few challenges. The first is, at this point, the patient has to navigate some kind of a file picker, navigating their file system to find the right information. And generally, people have trouble understanding where they've filed information away. It can be hard to find. It can be hard to know if the file they see listed is actually the right kind of file in the right format, if it's going to be a satisfactory answer to the request. But it also, even if patients understand how to do all those steps, it also doesn't let patients select the information they want just in time. So maybe the request is asking for several kinds of information, and patients want to tailor a request or answer certain questions based on the particular clinical context. But if all you're doing is picking a file that already exists, you don't have that ability to customize what gets shared. So this takes us to a workflow for sharing smart health links, where the user might switch away from a registration portal and go to a patient app that is powered by smart health links. And at that point, they can choose exactly what they want to share. They could annotate it with their own additional information. And then they have to copy that smart health link onto their digital clipboard and then switch back to the patient portal and paste it in. And for expert users, this is actually a pretty viable workflow, but a lot of people get lost in this process and don't know exactly how to configure or customize that link or what information to include with it. And so this leads to a lot of failed connections. This is a model that I think looks a lot like sharing an API key. If you're an expert developer, you can sign into a website like GitHub and generate an access token and copy it onto your clipboard and paste it into the contexts where you need it. But you take a lot of responsibility and understanding to make that work well. What I want to present here is a workflow that's a lot more like an OAuth workflow that provides rails that direct you from one site into an app of your choice in order to share the data, and then direct you back in order to close the loop or complete the process. And I should say this is very much inspired and based on the same data types that we see in the W3C digital credentials APIs. So these are APIs that are being broadly implemented in web browsers that allow connectivity between relying party web applications and data that are stored in various kinds of mobile wallet applications. But it's also still very early days for the W3C digital credentials API. Implementations are not consistent across mobile OS vendors and browser vendors, and they're often not quite flexible enough to at least anticipate the kind of customization or tailoring of data that we expect to see in a healthcare scenario. And so what I'll show you here is very much inspired, but also tries to build a bridge that can allow us to get to the same kind of flexible sharing scenario, even before every mobile OS and browser vendor has shipped widespread support for that W3C digital credentials API. So I'm going to launch a little simulation here that is Dr. Mandel's clinic, and this is an example of a check-in workflow. So as a patient, you could imagine that you get to a screen like this as part of an online appointment booking process, or because you've already booked an appointment and a week before your visit date, you get a text message asking you to fill out some paperwork, and it might take you to a portal like this. This should be a pretty familiar looking screen where you're being asked to share some information that might include insurance information, clinical history, as well as some patient intake forms. And the sort of new and exciting bit here is there's a button that says Share with Smart Health Check-in. And if I tap that button, I'll be taken to a list of apps that I might want to use in order to complete that sharing request. And I should say the apps that I'm listing here are not actively participating in this effort. I've included them in this sketch just to give a kind of sense of the sorts of entities that might one day wish to participate in this kind of workflow. And these are organizations that have publicly committed to participating in the CMS Kill the Clipboard initiative. So we know these are organizations that are at least interested in this kind of functionality. So as a patient, let's say I've used FlexBA before, I can tap that FlexBA icon to launch either a web app or a native app that will show me the details of what's being requested and allow me one by one to say like, yes, I want to share my insurance card, or no, I don't. Same for clinical summary. And of course, it could give me the ability to select within these options what portions of a clinical summary do I want to share or to provide additional notes or annotations. And then if there's some kind of intake form to be filled out, it can pre-fill various details for me, and it could allow me to make updates on the fly as needed. And I should say that an intake form generally would not need to repeat information that we would find in a clinical summary. So I might expect the questions on an intake form not to be asking me about my allergies and birth date, but rather to be asking me about what's bringing me in today for a visit, what kinds of symptoms or problems have I been experiencing, information that's not already going to exist in the clinical record. But this is just a quick example. The idea is that any FHIR bundles and any FHIR questionnaires can be shared using this same workflow. So I'm going to go ahead here and click Share Selected Data, and then I'm returned back to the requesting application, the Dr. Mandel's Family Medicine portal, and now I've got check marks saying I've shared all the relevant information. And if you're interested in the sort of system level details and you want to see some JSON payloads of what got shared, that's displayed at the bottom here as well. So that's a very quick view of a sharing workflow that is inspired by OAuth and W3C digital credentials, APIs, and it's designed to hold the user's hand step by step and put some of the most challenging and interesting parts of this workflow, which is to say letting patients select what to share and how to share it, putting those parts in the hands of patient apps that are really geared towards and eager to solve just these problems. And as a patient portal, I no longer have to be responsible for having the very best questionnaire rendering capabilities. I can offload some of those details to an app that already has an aggregated view of the patient's history outside. So hopefully that's some inspiring food for thought, and I'd love to take questions and talk more through what it would take to get a protocol like this more widely in adoption.